Meet me.
Welcome back, boys. It's been a while since we did an account overview because honestly, I was trying to keep my account super secret for my RTA push last season. We'll discuss that more later, but it is done. Dr. Squirrel, Legend Arena player, top 100 Guild Wars player, has now added top 100 Legend RTA player to his list of credentials. Legend RTA is by far the hardest thing to accomplish in Epic 7, bar none, so I feel like I've essentially beaten the game at this point. That last day was probably the craziest thing I've ever done in Epic 7, and we'll talk about that too. But we pulled through, we got the W, and the squirrel's no longer a filthy champion scumbag. I am officially a legend player. So let's go ahead and collect our shiny new frame. So we got the background skin, the Ruel skin, and bam, the splendid skyward frame. So I didn't like how it looked that much in the preview thing. Let's see how it looks equipped. Hey, honestly, it doesn't look that bad. I actually kind of like it. When it's blown up, it looks pretty nice. I still like the Season 2 frame the best, but I think I like this better than the Season 1 and 3 frames. Um, I think if it wasn't light blue and it was like fully purple like the Season 2 one, it might actually be one of my favorites. I think it just might be the color. Uh, Honestly, it's a Legend RTA frame though. Even if it was a ring of garbage, I'd still wear it. So who is this amazing Legend RTA player? Well, today we're going to find out everything about this account. So as always, we break our videos down into topics. So number one, I'm going to go into a hero overview and talk about all of my heroes and their gear, and you might be surprised at how bad some of them are. Number two, because I want to be honest, I'm going to talk about the packs that I've bought, my total spend on this account, so that you guys can get a sense of how much money I've spent to get here. I don't want people to think I'm F2P or anything. I'm always very honest about my account. Topic number three, I'm going to talk a little bit about that crazy legend push and advice for other people trying to do it. And number four, we're going to talk about my future plans for this channel. And, apologies in advance if you're underwhelmed because honestly, I'm probably one of the worst geared legend players out there. I'd say at least bottom 40% or maybe even bottom 10%, who knows, based on some of the other crazy legend account reviews I've seen on YouTube. But now that I don't care about hiding anything, let's show you ourselves. So let's get started. All right, so topic number one. I'm going to show you all the heroes that I have built, and I'm going to highlight the ones that I use the most often in my RTA push. Now, some of my guildies know my gear, and one of them watches a lot of top player streams, and he said he would not be surprised if I'm the worst geared legend player out there. That's probably an exaggeration, but I am probably definitely in the bottom 25% in terms of gear. I think some legend players even thought I was F2P because of my gear quality. I'm not actually at all. I'll go over that in the pack section. But my speed gear is absolutely atrocious. I do not have a single hero at 300 speed, which is probably unusual for a legend player. But let's just go through them one by one and you'll see. And just so I prove that I'm not like hiding gear or anything, before we start, let's look at this just so I could show you that all my like reforged gear and stuff is actually equipped. So I'm not hiding any gear and trying to bamboozle anyone because it is free unequipped. So I guess theoretically I could be hiding gear, but it is all my gear on these heroes. So Holiday Yafine, we'll start with her. She kind of is bad at RTA. She's a pocket pick, so I didn't really use her much, so it didn't matter that her gear isn't that great. 3k attack, 215 crit damage, okay speed, a little bit of bulk. Her defense is horrible, but her HP is fine. But again, she is just a liability in most drafts. The only way you would take her is if they had something like S10A Basar, and for some reason they didn't draft an Aureus Knight. Pretty much if they have a Knight, she's a liability because she does so little damage she can't kill anything. And also she's hard countered by things like LR Crown stuff, so very tough to use this hero. So it's fine that her gear wasn't very good. Ravi, this is one of my better geared heroes. I think my Ravi's pretty good. I'm sure it could be better. It's not like her stats are perfect or anything, but it's fine. I think I was pretty comfortable using my Ravi. I do have her on Timeless Anchor. Among Legend players, the general consensus is Sigurd Scythe. I think Timeless is much better because of the way you draft Ravi, right? Ravi was actually kind of not used very much this season, but the time you use Ravi is when they underdraft damage, right? Like if they don't go high DPS like S10As and Landies and things like that, if you don't respect their damage and they draft a lot of knights, you pick Ravi and you scare them into dealing with her because she could 1v4 a team if you can't kill her, right? And in that situation, I think Timeless Anchor is much better because you can't get controlled and locked down by something like an A Tywin. I've won so many games because she was stunned, and they were forced to hit her because she's the last hero left, and Timeless Anchor procs, she shakes off the stun and she drops DS3 and wins you the game. So I think Timeless Anchor is the best artifact on her, especially in the kind of drafts that you would actually use her in. Araz, this is just not a good A-Raz. He's pretty slow for an A-Raz. The effectiveness, I guess, is okay. He is a little tankier. Like, I'd say most Legend players, A-Raz in general wasn't used a lot this season, but top players typically have him a little bit squishier, but they'll be like 250, 260 speed with a little bit more effectiveness, and they'll basically use him as an S2 spamming machine. But I didn't really draft him ever, so it didn't matter. This I didn't use. I just considered it a bad hero. Lilius, early in the season, I used her a decent amount. I'd say in the last week, I don't think I drafted her more than once. Her gear is not very good either. She's not even fully reforged. Okay speed, okay tankiness, but zero offensive stats really. I'd say, like, I've seen Lilius's with the same health, defense, and speed while having like 300 crit damage. So, yeah, not a great Lilius. Kayron, this is a pretty bad one, but again, irrelevant. I never drafted him, and pretty much no one drafted Kayron. He just wasn't a very popular unit this season. This is my trash can Politis. I actually did draft this hero a decent number of times, mostly against cleavers as a scare pick. And but every single time I drafted her, luckily she got banned out. This is why I did not do an account overview video earlier. I was trying to keep a lot of my trash builds secret because if they knew how bad my Politis was, they might just let it through, right? Like look at the I don't even know what the gear score on some of this garbage is, but it is just bad gear. But again, like if you pick something like Politis into a draft, it's very scary and they'll probably just ban it anyway. So it was fine. So her gear is garbage, but whatever. Researcher Carrot, I think I was fine with mine. Like, other than the fact that her speed is a little bit low, I think her defensive stats are fine, and 4,000 attack is more than enough to get the job done. So I think this is one of my better geared units. I didn't care about effectiveness. A lot of people like to run at least like 50, 60 effectiveness. I didn't care for that because you're not going to land on something like a Ruel or a Crow anyway. I just want to one-shot their DPS, so she never really had trouble landing the burns even with 10 effectiveness. So I think Carrot, I was perfectly fine with her gear quality. Not used in PvP, not used in PvP. Crow, I used him all the freaking time. Now, again, his gears, I think his gear is solid, but I remember, I forget who he was, but there was someone running a Crow with similar stats to mine, except he had 30k HP and about 100 less defense. So, I'm not one of those super god Crow heroes. I even did that summon video to try and get one extra imprint for my Crow. But yeah, he was pretty good. I think this is fine. I think there's nothing really wrong with him other than the fact that, for a legend tier player, a lot of them did have like 28 to 30k HP, but not all of them, so I think my Crow was decent. This, not used clearly. This was my Wyvern Alexa, but not even that anymore. This is my Wyvern one-shot Karen. Again, very easy to build, trash gear. My Kisei. So again, for a legend Kisei, this is quite slow, right? There were Kiseis that were close to 300 speed. I remember one that outsped my Cerise, and I was like, what the hell? I forget who it was. So my Kisei was definitely on the slower end in terms of Kiseis, but I think my offensive stats are likely a little bit higher because, that's what you have to do, right? Like if you can't contest speed, put those extra stats into other things because I didn't have a lot of gear that rolled into speed, but I had decent bruiser gear, right? Like, like this chest isn't too horrible. I mean, this helmet isn't too horrible. It just doesn't have much speed on it. So, I mean, you got to work with what you have. And I drafted Kisei a lot in my legend push. So, it was fine. I mean, the one disadvantage I had is a lot of top players who had fast keysays, like 280 plus keysays, they can reasonably expect to outspeed an average Bazaar, right? I couldn't. The average Bazaar is probably like 270 to 275. So if they drafted Bazaar into my keysay, I had to ban it. Where some players running like 280 to 290 keysays could probably still afford to let it through and get the reset on the carrot or whatever. So, you just have to draft according to your stats. This is my absolute fastest unit that I have, and it's only 293 speed. Which for newer players are going to be like, holy cow, 293 speed. Yeah, legend players, they're a lot faster than that. But this is my absolute fastest unit. She's pretty much the same she's always been. The one thing I did was I changed her neck because I used to run her with CDOM, so she had a crit chance neck. I realized I don't cleave, so I gave her a defense main, and this is my fastest piece of non-boot gear that I actually own. I don't have anything past 24 speed, so this is my literal fastest piece of gear. I used to have it on my flurry. And overall, I don't think my Cerise is that bad. She's just a little bit slower than the average. Like Cerise is a very fast hero. I think 126 base speed, right? Something like that. 124, 126. I don't feel like doing this math right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, she's usually most people's fastest units if they don't have something like an ACID, but she got the job done. I'd say I drafted her not too often, but she was used. This is my Wyvern SSB. On the last 2 days, I did re-gear her for RTA, but I barely used her, and it was the standard like 1500 defense, 17,000 HP, 200 crit damage, 3k attack tank SSB. But I already switched her back to her Wyvern build, so I can't show that to you right now. But again, I don't think SSB was a very popular pick anyway. Basically a 5 pick. Dizzy, I never use. This was one of my most picked RTA heroes and carried me in many ways. Again, her stats probably look unimpressive to a lot of legend players. 274 speed, 185 effectiveness. Now, there are some legend players who ran even more effectiveness than me, but I'd say I'm probably a little bit on the higher end to the average F10A. And I ran it on Compass. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to deal with maids. The average maid probably runs around 200 to 220 effect resist, and she has her passive. So you need about 240 effectiveness to bust through the average maid. And I remember I bamboozled several players with it, like even someone like Light when he started drafting maid instead of cleaving against me, and I just landed the S3 on him and won the match. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of a troll build, but I definitely drafted her all the time. And she was actually the main reason why FCC first pick was one of my go tos. You pick FCC first pick to protect the F10A pick, right? Because they're not going to draft F10A into FCC. So if you pick FCC first, you can see what they draft next and then transition to F10A if it makes sense. Amomo, I never use. I mean, look at her stats. They're atrocious right now. She's on throwaway gear. This is my DN, and I actually used her in Legend RTA a decent amount of times. And again, free PvP gear, 75 helm, 78 neck. Pretty trashy for a Legend DN, but I mean, the thing with DN is her gear doesn't have to be that great. I see the most important thing is to have a reasonable amount of speed and enough tank where she doesn't just get blown up instantly. Because for the most part, people aren't going to focus on killing the DN first. Her stats used to be better, but I stole a lot of her gear to redistribute to like Crow and LR Crow and stuff. So I might have to fix her up a little bit if I continue to do competitive RTA. Valencia, I literally never drafted her once. No one did. I'd say the only people who ever used Valencia was I ran to Shovels a few times. I feel like I don't know if he was trolling or he's just stuck in an old meta, but he was drafting a lot of like season one style units like Valencia and Fire, Cecilia and stuff. So I don't know if he was just using his favorite units. Um, but yeah, it's literally the only time I ran into Valencia, generally just an outdated unit for modern meta RTA. Charles, no one ever uses him in RTA anymore, unfortunately, or actually fortunately, because I hated dealing with him. So he doesn't matter. I don't even know what kind of gear he has. This is my flurry. Pretty terrible for a legend tier flurry. I'd say the average flurry in legends like 285 speed, and some of the really good ones are like 295 to 300. I know what's his name? Mace. I ran into Mace. He had a super fast flurry. I think it was faster than my Cerise. So yeah, mine is I think the defensive stats are okay, but the speed is just really bad. My effectiveness might be a little bit higher than average. I say the average probably like 1600 defense, like 17 to 18 KHP, 285 speed, and like 60 to 80 effectiveness. But it doesn't matter. I almost never used her. Celine, I didn't draft her one. She has zero molas in her. Don't use her. This is my Landy. I drafted her not too often because I hate her, but I did use her at times. The reason I don't like her is the same reason I don't like Flurry. And like Flurry's an interesting hero because I hate dealing with Flurry when she's on the other team. I usually end up banning it, but I never want to pick it because I feel like this move, every time I need it to work, it doesn't work. And they either resist everything or they don't get provoked or they don't get death braked, and I hate it. And for me, Landy's the same way because most of her survivability is based on Guiding Light. If she doesn't proc Guiding Light, a lot of the times I just lost the match and it infuriated me. So I actually used to run her a little bit tanky. I had her on like 1300 defense, 16k HP, but I found out that if Guiding Light didn't proc, she never made it through turn two anyway, even with that bulk. So I just switched her to be a lot more offensive, and I said, hey, if I'm going to run this, I'm rolling the dice. I'm going purely offensive. I want to do as much damage as possible, and that's how I ran it. So a lot of players did run tanky or landies, but if you were going to do that, most of them doing that were big fans of double Soul Weaver, like DN, Ruel, Landy, S10A, something like that. I was not a double Soul Weaver player, so I didn't care about making a tank Landy. I just wanted her to bust through teams and punish them if they did something like draft, like double Knight and like double Soul Weaver, something ridiculous like that. And then I would kind of just rely on Landy to steamroll them. This is my Bazaar again. Just not very good. Yeah, I just don't have speed gear, guys. 15, 17, 16, 19, 18. I mean, it's fine. He got the job done. I drafted him a reasonable number of times. The problem with him is I like F10A better because F10A will win you the game with the redirected provokes. Basar, after he has threes, if the rest of your team doesn't have a huge follow up, he kind of becomes a liability after, right? He doesn't really do much for. He doesn't really do much of anything at all after that opener. So yeah, I mean, if they can just stall through your damage, like you can't draft Basar into Soul Weavers, right? Because they'll just heal through the damage and then you're down a unit basically. They don't even have to kill him. So I didn't draft him all that much, but this is his gear. I guess I kind of used him. Vivian never used, right? I drafted him once or twice just to scare people who picked F10A, and luckily he would get banned, but this was my PvP Ray. 75 effect resist. So clearly this was just a troll Ray, and I really didn't want him to ever get through. So yeah, anyone who ever banned him playing against me, joke's on you. He was garbage. Rowana, again, garbage gear, but actually I drafted her a decent amount, and Rowana is one of those heroes where her gear really doesn't matter. If someone with an SSB or an F10A or even a Champ Z sometimes lets her through, she's gonna do work even with ass gear. So again, like we have garbage like this and this, but it's fine. Like I have a lot of respect for this hero. She's a very good hero to pick. Again, her gear is bad, but honestly, it didn't really impact her that much, and she won me a lot of games. This is my G Purge. I actually don't know what the average Legend G Purge looks like, so I don't know. I know a lot of them ran them slower with like 100% crit and high crit damage. Because I had a very offensive play style, right? I needed my G Purge to be much faster because I needed him to go before my DPS so I could open with a string of attack buffed like damage units. So I basically ignored defense and health because my philosophy was who the hell ever goes for G Purge first anyway? So his defensive stats to me were irrelevant. No one's going to attack him because it's going to CR push your whole teams. And if they do want to go for him first, fine. I was usually in DPS races anyway. So G Purge, his gear was fine. I'm sure there are better ones out there, but it did the job for me. Don't use, don't use. I don't even use her for cleave anymore, and I stole her immunity gear from my RTA unit, so I can't even really cleave with her safely. This is my LQC. I'm actually not a big fan of LQC. I almost never drafted her, but honestly, she's pretty decently geared, I think. Almost 5k attack, not a great amount of bulk, but that's fine. All she has to really do is survive long enough to get her S3 up, and this was usually enough. So I think her gear is actually pretty decent. LQC, I think her gear is pretty decent. F Maya, I freaking love this hero. Limited number of cases you can draft her, but if you can draft her, she can just win you the whole game. And my F Maya is one of my best geared units, I think. I know her crit damage seems kind of low, but even through Aureus, my F Maya would one-shot RBs from 100 to 0, like speed RBs, not degen RBs. And she was basically a very solid RB counter for me, as long as he didn't draft things. Like, you can't draft her into meta units like Landy and S10A because she can't do anything against them. But against certain like Cleavy teams and RB teams, she was a juggernaut. I think I actually even used her against like Aether Bulge and stuff. Like, she's tops. LR Crow, easily one of my top 5 favorite units. I used him all the freaking time. He's not particularly fast, doesn't have a huge amount of HP, but I made up for it by having a pretty high amount of defense for an LR Crow. And I won a lot of matches where people were just trying to finish off my LR Crow and they could not kill him because he was so bulky. So, you just gotta adjust your units to your quality of gear. I know I keep saying that, but if you can't make them fast, make them tanky or make them hit harder. You got to just work with your gear. So I think my LR Crow was fine, even by legend standards, one of my favorite units. T-Cern, she's fine as well. Nothing really wrong with her. I'm sure other players have ones that have more crit damage and attack and speed, but, in her role, I think it was fine. Most Legend players switched their T-Serens to Alexas. I kept it on MLDB because I used her a lot against Cleavers, and MLDB won me a lot of matches. And even in Bruiser matches, MLDB won me a lot of matches. So it's just my play style. I don't really follow the meta always if I don't agree with it. Like, same thing with Ravi. Everyone did Sigurd stuff. I did not agree with it. It was just another case where I thought MLDB was better. I fully recognize that the general consensus is Alexis is better, but I like MLDB. Politica, as you can see, I don't use her. Some players used her and she's quite scary, but my speed gear sucks, so I really just didn't have any opportunity to ever pick her. Didn't draft this once. This is my Sage Ball. His gear's not particularly good, but he got the job done. His effectiveness is low, his speed is kind of low. I know some people were running like 290 plus balls. That's impossible for me. But other Legend players also ran slower balls than me. There's two kind of like schools of thought on Sage Ball. Like, some people like to run them like fast, high effectiveness, decent HP. And the other people like to run them slower, and not really even slow, but like 240 to 250. But they'll have like 20,000 plus life, high defense, decent effectiveness. And the thing is with his S2, even at 240 speed, he cycles very quickly as long as you don't S2, right? So they would basically just never S2 and just keep spamming the S1 to control your team. I kind of went the middle ground because that's what my gear allowed, but honestly, this hero won me a lot of matches, and I'm glad that I got him from the coin shop the week before RT season closed because he clutched me a lot of matches. Did not use, clearly did not use. TJB I actually drafted a few times, but again, 80 gear, 75 gear. Again, he was one of these picks meant to scare people in drafts, right? A lot of times I drafted heroes that looked scary, but I was praying that they would pre-ban it. Because look at my DJ Basar. He's actually, his tank is okay for DJ Basar, but he's freaking slow and his effect resist is actually not that high, right? Like a solid DJB, you want at least like 250 effect resist because you can expect an F10A to have 200 effectiveness. Usually they won't be on compass like mine, but still, 200 effectiveness at 250 effect resist means you have a 50-50 shot of getting debuffed. At 224 against a 200 effectiveness F10A, I'm going to get debuffed more often than not. So this is very risky, but I basically picked it trying to scare people into saying like, this is a 300 effect resist DJ Basar, you better ban it. And thankfully, usually they did. Doris is pretty good, but honestly, I never drafted her, so her gear is not that great, but it doesn't matter. Same thing with Ruel. I don't think I've changed her gear in like 3 seasons. She gets the job done. Literally, the only time I would draft her is to punish players who only drafted one DPS in their first 4 picks. And if it wasn't a scary DPS like a S10A or a Landy, I might pick this to kind of make them force ban her and be like, hey, you didn't draft enough DPS. You better ban this Ruel, or you're just gonna get grinded out because you didn't draft enough damage. But I didn't use her very much. It's fine. Don't use only use this in Guild Wars. His gear, like look at all this garbage gear, but for Guild Wars he's fine. Delabet, her gear is garbage, and I hate her. I think she's a pretty bad hero, to be honest. Some Legend players did draft her and use her, but I just found her to be wonky and unreliable because of the way her cleanse works. Like, usually what would happen is she would cleanse herself at an inopportune time and then get disabled again right after, so she couldn't S3. Or they don't S3 and just end up holding her S3 and she just ends up spamming this useless S1. Just a wonky hero to use. I'm sure some other players, like, she's okay in certain situations, but very rare because not many people ran control nowadays, so I didn't like her at all. Infernal Kawazu. I freaking love this hero. So this hero's interesting because when he was first previewed, everyone said he was busted and hyped him up like crazy. I was one of those people. And then he came out, and I feel like the community kind of soured on him, and they were like, "Oh, he's actually not that good. He's kind of doo doo. No one uses him." I used him all the freaking time, even in Legend RTA, and you can see my last 6 hours of the final day. I used him, and he won me a bunch of matches. Like, the reason people don't have a lot of respect for ML Kawazu now is because they think they figured him out. They say, just don't S3 and, kill him first, right? Because if you don't AoE him, he does not get vigor, right? So he can't ignore effect resist. But the thing is, imagine there was a hero in the game where he had a passive that said, enemy team can't S3 on their first turn. Everyone would say that's the most busted ability ever, right? But he essentially has that. If you S3, he pushes himself up and punches you in the face. And the other thing that people don't understand, this was my LQC counter, right? Because people draft LQC into me thinking that LQC counters Infernal Kawazu. No, she doesn't. Even without Vigor, my Infernal Kawazu would one-shot an LQC as long as he didn't get resisted on the strip and landed 2 burns. So I thought this hero was amazing, and I used him all the time, but I might be in the minority who thinks that. But hey, I made Legends, so I think I was, partially right about it. ML Ken's doo-doo this season. I did not use him at all. I even started stealing some of his gear for other units. This is my FCC. She's okay. She has decent life. Her speed is pretty doo-doo though. But she's fine. I mean, she's FCC. There's really nothing wrong with her. other than the fact that her gear could be better. Like this neck isn't too good. I mean, she's okay. She's fine. This is my trash can troublemaker. The only reason he's on counter set is because I ran out of speed set night gear. So his stats are pretty horrendous. Only 130 effect resist. He's slow. He's not very tanky. But it was fine because the only time I ever drafted him was against Cleavers. And Cleavers pre-banned him most of the time anyway. And when they didn't, he did tend to win me the match. And I had him on Bastion, usually went on a carrot or something, and I would survive the initial burst, and carrot would one shot their whole team. This is my Arby by Legend tier. I mean, this is not a bad Arby by any means, but it's also nothing special. This is what most Arby's look like. I will say the one difference that I never changed is most Legend Arby's are fully, if they're speed Arby's, they're fully optimized to not have any subs except like attack, crit damage, and stuff like that. So they'll usually land around 86 to 8800 HP. I kept mine at around 98, so I do have some health subs, like 22% health on the weapon. And I kept that because what I found was a lot of people like to pick Tomo into me, and I ran a lot of FCC LR Crow, and a lot of Tomos would barely fail to kill my RB because he had that 1000 extra HP. So I actually like that. And so even though I could have changed his gear to kind of optimize and get rid of it, I just never did because I felt like that little bit of extra HP won me a lot of matches and made a lot of top legend players misplay against me because they didn't know I had it, because they expected to kill it because most top speed Arby's had the exact same amount of HP because they were optimized to not have any health subs, but mine did. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. I forgot to mention that for F10A. You'll notice that I've wasted subs into effect resist here, but I just never changed it because I thought it was hilarious. I actually won a lot of matches because she would just randomly resist like provokes and stuff. And I thought that was hilarious because if you have zero effectiveness, 40% effect resist actually helps a little bit, right? So, I have some wasted subs of some of my units, but it's just because I noticed that it helped and I just never changed it. This is my garbage tier acid. This is yet another scare pick where when I pick it, I want people to ban it. Because the thing is, if a top tier player picks acid, your assumption immediately is 305 speed plus, and that if you drafted something like F10A or Cerise or something, you need to get rid of it. Um, yeah, but not for me because it's not very fast. It's slower than my Cerise to it in. This is just my best speed gear, and it's on hit set because that was the only gear I could find. Like chest is 14 speed. You just got to work with what you have, right? But I very rarely drafted him, and when I did, again, I wanted him to get banned. It's on portrait, um, so it was fine, I guess. And that is my second fastest unit in my roster. So in terms of speed, my fastest is Cerise at I think 294, Acid at 289, and then Sage Ball at I think 275, and F10A at 274. So someone commented on one of my videos saying like all legend players have every single opener at 300 speed. I promise you that's not true because you've seen some of my openers and they're nowhere close to that. Uh, yep, yeah. This is not the OpSig I had built for RTA season. I switched her back to this destruction gear so I could just cheese Arena. But she had pretty bad stats. And I want to say she was 3,300 attack, 235 speed, and like 99% crit chance, and maybe like 290 crit damage. So typical secondary G Purge follow up OpSig. So if you want to see a really good OpSig, I would say probably look at someone like Lights. But mine was a similar build, just with worse stats and everything. This is my Amerc. I actually love my Amerc. Again, she's kind of a hard hero because she's the kind of hero that will either win you the match or do absolutely nothing, similar to Charles in that way. But I think I have the proper build. I think a lot of people screw up their Amercs because they try to give her too much attack, crit chance, and crit damage. She is not a DPS. She is a disruptor. Like, what she's meant to do is violin strip the entire team and blind people. And tank enough to get the S3 off, because the S3 actually hurts if she can make it there. So you need a lot of bulk, and mine's pretty bulky. Like, I've had people emote me when they, like, you know, LQC S3 Soulburn into an S1 into my Archdemon, and my Archdemon's still chilling there with 30% HP, and they just emote. They're like, what the hell is this Archdemon? So mine's very tanky. I think this is the proper build, just as a tanky disruptor. Yeah, this is unusable in RTA. Never drafted him once. Slow, squishy, garbage. I'm not a cleaver, so I don't care about my CDOM. Slow, squishy, garbage. Champ Z, I think he's built fine. He actually did work for me, even on the last day. So with the advent of Carrot, Champ Z started coming back because he used to be very popular, and then he fell off because it was hard to build him, right? He either just died or, didn't do enough damage or whatever. A lot of people resorted to putting him on proof because of that reason, but you needed Violin to deal with Carrots because it actually strips the barrier that she puts up instantly, and it also gets rid of any potential immunities so that you could send the burns back. But this was a very core unit for me in my Legend push. Very critical unit to have and won me a ton of matches. Stenny, she's fine. Not an amazing Stenny, but definitely not a bad Stenny either. A lot of Legend players switch to lifesteal Stennies. The only reason I didn't was because I don't have any lifesteal gear. My only lifesteal gear is on Champ Z and T Surin. If you guys follow me, I just don't have Banshee gear. And again, I will prove it. What is lifesteal gear? There you go. This is all my lifesteal gear. 2 years of playing. This is my entire lifesteal gear set. I do not do Banshee. I do not have lifesteal gear to go around. Almost all my gear is speed set. Like, even resist set. Like, what do I have for resist set? What is, like, less than 30 pieces? This is all of my gear. Immunity, I do a lot of asthmatic now, so that's fine. But look, the vast majority of my gear is speed. I just do Wyvern. I think that's the most important. So S10A, nothing wrong with her, but average. Tomo, I thought my Tomo was good until I saw Kenny 14's. He has a 297 speed Tomo, I believe, which is freaking bonkers. But I thought my Tomo was fine. Mine hits a little bit harder than the average one, I think, because I focused more into offensive stats instead of speed. So I think there's nothing wrong with my Tomo. I used her a lot, not so much on the last day, but throughout the season. I used her a lot, and she won me a ton of matches. Definitely one of my favorite units. But I will say on the last day, she was kind of a liability because I didn't feel safe drafting her. Because if I drafted her too early and they picked double speed, again, you have to draft according to your gear quality. If them picking two speed units for their 4 or 5 picks will make you lose the match, you cannot pick units like this because she has no first turn survivability. So like if I pick Tomo with the 4 pick and it went to them for 4 or 5 and they pick something like Kisei Acid, I auto lose because I can't ban them both, right? And I can't contest with my 5 pick because I don't have anything faster than those heroes. So you have to draft always according to your gear quality. And we'll discuss that more when I make an RTA guide video. And that is all my heroes. So, in my legend announcement video, I said I'd prove to you guys that my gear is nothing special despite making legend. I know for newer players it still looks pretty good, but you can go ahead and go on YouTube and check out some other legend players' accounts. I would not be surprised if I'm in the bottom 20% in terms of gearing, but I do think I was a considerably above average drafter and general player within the match as well. Hero Journal, I have every RGB hero in the game. I don't have Strays, but I will get him. I just don't like this current banner, so I'm going to wait to see what the future ones are. And these are all my ML5s. I don't have Briar Witch. Didn't matter. I didn't care about that. I don't have Riolet. I kind of want him, but again, I didn't think it mattered that much. Epoch Ravi was a non-issue. These two were a big issue for me, though. I don't have Blood Moon Haste, and I don't have Maid Chloe. Mead Chloe was a super toxic unit this season. If you did not pre-ban her and they had her, they were going to pick her 100% of the time. So I hated her buffs because it meant I always had to pre-ban her, because I also did not have her direct counter. Because if you have one of the two heroes, it's fine, right? If you have Maid, you can abuse it and pre-ban Blood Moon Haste. If you have Blood Moon Haste, you can let Maid through, pick Blood Moon Haste, and they'll probably ban the BMH because it's a force ban, but at least you can draft the rest of your draft around that. And you can also just end up banning Maid too if you want to. I could not do either, and if you watch my grind video, I actually start raging about it in the video, particularly this hero because I love Arby, and I called it the fatal mistake in my video. Um, I make this recurring dumb decision where, knowing that they might have Blood Moon Haste, I early pick Arby anyway. And before that, I'll just be like, am I making a fatal mistake here? And then bam, they'll pick Blood Moon Haste, and I'll be like, F, I'm going to lose. Because if you pick Arby and they pick Blood Moon Haste, like 80% of the time, you're going to lose because they control the draft at that point. But I made that mistake multiple times anyway, just because Arby is a sexy, sexy man, and I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist. Spez, who cares? I don't have him, but I don't care. I could have gotten him from the coin shop. He wasn't even worth the coins to me. A Tywin, one of my most wanted units, but honestly, not having him was kind of a non-issue this season. He fell off in a big way because of the advent of Carrot, who's hard to control, the popularity of units like LR Crow, and the resurgence of Champion Zerato. A lot of top players still used him, but he wasn't as big of a deal or as toxic as he was in prior seasons. Artifacts don't really matter, right? I have most of them. I'm missing some popular ones like Etika's and these I don't think anyone cares about. I don't have Bloodstone, which is kind of interesting. After 2 years, I still don't have a Bloodstone, and a lot of people were actually running Bloodstone Landies and SSBs. So I do want that artifact. I don't know how the hell I still don't have it, but in general, I have most important artifacts, so that's fine. So, anyways, those are my heroes. I'm sure, you know, many of you are probably underwhelmed, but on the flip side of it, you know, I was able to get to legend with that kind of gear, so um, I guess that's pretty cool, huh? All right, so I think I've shown you literally everything there is to show about my heroes. Let's move on to the next topic. All right, next section, packs. Because, all legend players are whales, right? Because I've had people message me and say, like, that I'm F2P. I don't think I've ever said that I'm F2P. So people who have followed me since the beginning have known that even early on I was a dolphin. Like, I probably spent a little under like $500 or grand or something in that first year. But basically, I was putting the YouTube money back into packs, right? Primarily these, because I can't review heroes if I can't get them. So I'd say the vast majority of my spend is on these Mystic packs, although I have so many medals that I haven't been buying them recently. But in the interest of full disclosure, I spent the time to go through my Google Play Android history and give you the exact number. I don't know what I spent in 2019, but it wasn't very much. But I added up everything in 2020 and 2021. So in 2021, I spent 3168, $3,168, and so far in 2021, I have used $1,500 worth of packs for a total spend of $4,668.59. That puts my total spend on this game at negative $2,424. And you guys might be saying, what does that mean? It's because, I hope I'm not like, I think other people have done this before, so I don't think I'm not allowed to do this or anything. But in the history of this channel has made $7,000 approximately. So basically, I'm net positive about $2,400 on this game if you don't include my time, right? In terms of time, I'm probably not even making 1/10 of minimum wage. In terms of recording and editing these videos, I'm probably getting paid like 20 cents an hour, right? So I don't want to say that this has been profitable for me. It hasn't. I have like in my all my time doing Epic 7, I haven't even made enough money to cover like one paycheck. So it doesn't really matter in terms of money. That's not why I do it. But I am not spending my quote unquote real money on Epic 7. I basically just shovel the YouTube money back into it. But that's my spend for this account, guys. It's probably a little bit higher than that, to be honest, because I probably spent like 500 to it. Let's assume it's $1,000. So let's say I spent about $5,600 in total on this Epic 7 account. So, am I a whale? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that dollar definition of a whale is, but I would say spending 5 grand on an account makes me a whale, right? Like, how much more do you have to spend? Like, I know some other people have spent like tens of thousands. Like, I want to say like Shotgun Shogun said, I think he had like a video called like my $20,000 whale account. Um, but so I haven't spent that much, I guess, and I'm sure like the rank one guy, he hires people to play for him, so he's probably spent like even more than that. But I think, 5.5 grand on a gotcha game is a pretty serious amount. So yes, I am a whale. And a quick distribution is it's about 75% of that is in Mystic packs. About 5% of that is monthly packs. I always buy the monthly packs. And the Burning Passion packs, I always buy those. And the other 20% is just other, primarily those special $100 packs that come out with like summer events and stuff. And in the very first thing I bought, I think I actually bought one of these because my friends gave me $100 for my birthday as long as I promised to buy a pack. But in general, that's what it is: 80% Mystics, 75% Mystics, 20% other, and 5% just monthlies and those Burning Passion packs. So, I think that's about as honest I could be. I wanted to be fully transparent about how much I spent. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I'm an F2P player that made Legend. I'm not. I've spent a decent chunk of change on this game, but luckily I have, YouTube to kind of fund that for me, but I know that's not a luxury everyone else has. So I just wanted to give you some like a reality check on how much it took to get there. Let's move on. All right, so topic 3. What was that legend push like? Um, it was easily the most stressful thing I ever did in Epic 7. Not the most infuriating. The most infuriating was the scorpion abyss floor, the thing with the stupid scorpion that can't be anything but slept or stunned. I think that's the thing I hated the most in Epic 7. But other than that, this was the most stressful thing. Like Legend Arena was not really stressful at all. If anything, it was tedious and boring because like as long as you have a decent arena team, there's no way not to get Legend Arena as long as you just keep playing all day on Sunday, which is horrible and boring, and I hated it. Um, but Legend RTA, there's a very real chance you can't make it, right? Whereas Legend Arena, as long as you have the willpower, you will make it. And Top 100 Guild Wars, I mean, again, um, it's impressive, but at the same time, you could be completely horrible and be in a top 100 guild if you're friends with someone, right? So it's hard to tell whether you're a great Guild Wars player or if you're just in a guild that happens to be good at Guild Wars. The Legend RTA, there's no way to be top 100 without being very good at the game. So, it was incredibly stressful, and, everyone you're up against can beat you. And in my case, like, these are like already the next season's the preseason started, but these are the last matches of that season. And I'm versing nothing but like legend players, right? Like all these people I think in this list probably made legend. This guy was the Epic 7 world champion. What Rock Brother? Yeah, Rock Brother was his Chinese name or whatever. And yeah, it was just super hard because you knew every single match going into it. You knew you had a very real chance of losing. And you're going to see right before my final heater, I lost 3 in a row. And if you watch my final grind, I've lost like 6, 7 in a row at times. So there's no reason these last 3 wins that locked in legend for me couldn't have been losses and ruined my chances entirely. So it was incredibly stressful. I mean, in terms of advice, I would say the best thing you could do is, I mean, at a bare minimum, you're going to need gear equivalent to mine or better, right? Because my gear is not very good, and I struggled with that. So I don't think you can get much worse than my gear quality and have any reasonable chance of making it. So you need a bare minimum my quality of gear. You need to have a strong mental outlook on it. Like you can't be too demoralized by losses. Like I can't stress enough. You're gonna go on losing streaks. Like I think at least once in the last week of this season, I went on double digit losing streaks. I think there was one where I lost 11 or 12 in a row. I put it in my guild Discord. It was just this entire screen was red. I lost every match. Even I queued up against like people like 1,000 points below me, and I would get RNG'd and lose, and I was just like infuriated. But you can't let that break you. If you do, you're just gonna quit. So you gotta just take your losses. Think of the things that you can do better every time. And there are going to be times when you played it perfectly and they just MLDB and counter everything and you lose anyway. It's just part of the game. But you gotta just take it in stride. The way I try to look at it is every time I get RNG'd badly, I try to remind myself that, hey, remember that match where you screwed that guy over with that lucky dual attack? It goes both ways. Like, don't get too salty about it. For every time you lost to bad RNG, you've probably won because of favorable RNG too, with that lucky dual attack or that last second MLDB. So yeah, like just keep grinding at it. You know, always anytime you lose, go back into the match, look at the draft, try to see did you screw up the ban? Did you misplay anything? You know, analyze every single match. And, you know, I had the advantage of recording a lot of my matches, so I can actually go back and do a play-by-play and see the entire match and see what I did wrong. And, you know, that's very important. Like, even in sports or something, like, you think of someone like Michael Jordan, like, you know, everyone always talks about what a great, talented player that he was, but no one ever talks about the fact that like all those players like Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or whoever, they spent a lot of their times watching tapes, like analyzing their own play, looking at their own screw ups, seeing what they could do better. In anything, that's a very important part. Like you need to be very analytical and critical of yourself, what you did wrong. And that's how a lot of players get stuck. There's so many arrogant people out there. Every time they lose, they're like, "Oh, he's a whale," or like, "Oh, you got super lucky," and they don't even mention the fact that you could just look at how they played and pick out 10 things that they did wrong, but they won't even look at that. They'll just be like, "I'm the best even though I have no credentials, blah blah blah," and there's whiny and like they never get anywhere. Like, don't be one of those people. So, you know, I'm not going to talk too much more about this because I am going to make a full guide video and go more into the intricacies of how to draft and things like that. But that's my general advice. Like, get decent gear, at least as good as mine or better. Have a strong mental outlook. Don't take losses too personally. You know, everyone in Legend, you know, is going to lose a lot. Like, you know, I want to guess 55% win rate is the average. Like, don't buy. Some people be like, oh, these legend players they were so good they had a 70% win rate. The only way to pull that off is those players who don't play RTA at all until the last week. Those legend players will have like a 70-80% win rate because the majority of their matches will be smashing like bronze and masters players, right, on the grind up. For the people who are in Legend early, like I was Legend from when the cutoff was 2,500, the entire season I was versing nothing but Legend players. So it's hard to keep a high win rate when 100% of your matches is against top 100 players. If you only play in the last like 2 days, probably 90% of your matches were mid champion or below, right? Where it's very easy to just steamroll people. So, you know, don't worry too much about your win rate. It doesn't matter that much. Think more about the quality of your opponents. So, anyways, let's move on. All right, so final topic, the future of this channel. So don't worry, I'm not quitting the game. The squirrel will still be around for a long time. But now that I've essentially beaten the game in my eyes, I'm going to make a few changes. And some of it's just announcements, nothing big. But so let's just get started from the top of my head. So first of all, number one, a lot of you guys have been asking me to do an RTA guide for quite a while. The reason I never did was because you guys know I don't like doing guides until I have a mastery of the subject. And I didn't think I was qualified to make an RTA guide while I was just a champion. I hate when people make guides without the proper qualifications, but now it will definitely be coming soon. I think I've finally proven that I kind of know what's going on, so I'll try to share everything I've learned with you. But it's such a huge topic that it'll probably be more of a classroom type session, so expect it to be long. There's no way to cover RTA in 15, 20 minutes. So I'm thinking it might be like 2 to 3 videos that are like 30 minutes to an hour each. I need to figure out what the topics will be and how to condense it, but it will be coming. Second, I will be uploading my entire Legend climb. I think it's like the last 8 or 9 hours that I started playing. And you guys will be able to see my emotions, my anger, my frustration. Actually, I was pretty calm for most of it, but I did get annoyed over Blood Moon Haste quite a few times when I kept making that fatal RB mistake I mentioned. Um, so yeah, you guys will be able to see that. 100% of the matches, nothing's cut out. You even get to see me kind of stress out when I lose like 7 in a row and I start thinking I might not be able to make it. You get to see the whole roller coaster and all the way up till the end when I finally get to like rank 40 and I just sit and camp out the last 40 minutes. So some of you guys might enjoy that, get a first person view of what a legend climb looks like. Number three, almost likely be retiring from competitive RTA, which is not to say I'm never going to RTA anymore. I will because I love it. But some of the more stressful aspects, like, trying to keep notes or remembering other players, the last day grind, the stress, things like that, I could probably do without now. I've already proven that I could do it once, so I don't really know how much I care to prove I can do it again, especially considering that now I've outed myself on my terrible gear, and most legend players will know they could just bully me now. Number four, I'll be going mostly F2P. Um, I mean, I might still buy Mystic packs to try and keep up with reviewing the ML5s for you guys, but I don't think I'll ever buy anything else. I'll buy the monthly packs still, no matter what, because they're such great value, and I want to support Smilegate because I love this game. And I might buy this with the YouTube money just so I could keep reviewing these new heroes for you guys, but pretty much everything else I think I'm done spending. Not because I'm against it or anything, but just because, again, if I'm retiring from competitive RTA, I'm not really trying to keep up with the big boys anymore, right? I'm fine with being an ex-big boy. So, I mean, if I'm not trying to do competitive RTA, what's the point of spending? So yeah. Uh, Number five, I'll probably focus more on helping new players and honestly just having fun, building units that aren't meta, doing more account reviews for you guys, which honestly I just didn't have the time for this season with my own legend grind. Possibly even being more responsive on Discord. I know I suck at responding to people, guys. I'm sorry about that, but honestly, I get a lot of questions and, I'm just lazy and I just don't want to check all the messages. And for the record, a lot of you guys message me and you have that stupid Discord setting where I can't message you back unless like you friend me or whatever. So I write these responses and then it says I can't message you and I just get pissed off and I stop responding to anybody. So I don't know what that setting is, but it's very irritating. So I'll try to be better with the future, but that's another big reason why I don't respond to people. Number six, I'll probably be branching out into other games as well and trying to do the same thing I did in E7 and get to the top. Counterside is something that's very much on my radar. I very much love the art style from what I've seen and the gameplay, but I don't want to play any game until it's out on global. Right now it's like Singapore or something. I don't want to do that. But if it comes out on global, I will probably almost certainly pick it up. I might even play other non-gacha games like the new Diablo, or well, maybe I'll reinstall WoW and try to get rank one again. But who knows? The sky's the limit. But basically, I'll be banking the YouTube money that I saved from not buying packs in E7, and I'm going to be saving that to wail on whatever new gacha addiction or whatever it is in the future that comes up. Again, I don't really care about the money from this channel. I use it to fund more stuff for this channel. Again, it's not a lot of money comparatively to what I make just working in real life. So it's just like side entertainment money. So hopefully I'll be able to, spend like $1,000 on Counterside or whatever when it finally comes out on global. I mean, assuming that I like the game, I've never played it, so if I hate it, I won't. But, I'm hoping that some other awesome gotcha comes out in the future and I can grind to the top in that game as well. So, anyways, I think that covers all the topics. Today we went over my heroes, my pack spend, a little talk about my legend push, my plans for this channel. So, this was a hefty video, but we had a lot to talk about. I hope that this answered. I don't really know what other questions you can possibly have about my account, but if you do, leave it in the comment section below. And if it's like a good question, I'll get back to you so that everyone can see the answer. And yeah, thanks for all your support, boys. Rocking this awesome frame now, even with my bad gear. And till next time, peace out, boys.